We are transmitting live from San Diego, California, from the studios of KPBS on the campus of San Diego State University. Greetings to our participants in Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, Paraguay, Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, and other countries in Latin America. We would also like to welcome our distinguished viewers here in the United States. And we would like to thank once again Telecomunicaciones de Mexico, PanamSat, and BrazilSat for their satellite linkage services, which allow us to reach all of you through the wonders of telecommunications. Welcome to the program Customer Service and Global Competitiveness, Foundations for Excellence, which is the 7th and final video conference in our 1995 series entitled Management Systems for the 21st Century. I am Armando Osorio, and I will be your moderator for this video conference. Since this is the last program in this series, we would like to remind the coordinators at each receive site to collect the attendance sheets for your site and to return them to the International Training Center before the end of November, together with a list of names of participants interested in obtaining the certificate or diploma for this series of programs. This program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. Much has been written and said about the new global economy. As the world integrates economically, the component parts are becoming more numerous, smaller, and more important. This means that as the global economy gets larger in organizations throughout the world, business units are becoming smaller. The heart of this new global economy is productivity, a new type of productivity. In today's economy, volume in what we produce is giving way to value. The client is the one that gives value to the things we produce. Customer service excellence maximizes this concept and assures our organizations the market competitiveness needed for survival and growth as we enter the 21st century. This video conference will discuss these new realities and the impact of those changes on our organizations and our relationships with our customers. Our expert speaker today will present a service profit process that quantifies the substantive or hard value of decisions made on intangible aspects of the organization. This process can help managers target new investments to develop service and satisfaction levels for maximum competitive impact, propelling our organizations towards world-class status. The importance of management by fact, using new approaches such as strategic vision, re-engineering, and organizational change will be analyzed. This important video conference will put in perspective the real foundation for excellence today, the symbiosis of global competitiveness and client service. It is my pleasure to present to you today's guest and expert speaker, Mr. Jerome Finnigan. Mr. Finnigan is a human resources manager for Xerox Corporate Research and Technology in El Segundo, California. He joined Xerox in 1966 and has held a variety of human resource positions in Los Angeles, California, and Rochester, New York. Mr. Finnigan has been responsible for his organization's well-known benchmarking program. He was an early advocate of quality circles in the late 1970s and was quality officer for the printing systems division during Xerox's implementation of total quality. Mr. Finnigan is co-author with Dr. Warren Schmidt of 2 books on total quality management, entitled The Race Without a Finish Line, America's Quest for Total Quality, and Total Quality Manager, TQ Manager, a practical guide to managing in a total quality organization. Welcome, Mr. Finnigan. Before we begin, I would like to ask you the following question. To what extent has the current phenomenon of global competitiveness changed the traditional concept and value of customer service?
Good question, Armando. In this new era we call the global economy, competition is coming from many different directions, from many different organizations, many different countries. But they all have one thing in common, and that is providing the customer with value. Value for their dollar, their peso, or their yen. Increasingly, many of the products and services these organizations provide are very equal in value. And so the determiner of who wins is the customer's decision of who's providing them the most value. And that is a whole new ballgame.
Muchas gracias por su respuesta. Ahora pasamos a...
For your answer, now let us begin with Module 1, where Mr. Finnigan will discuss how today's economy and customer expectations have redefined the requirements of global competitiveness.
Hello. It is a pleasure to be back at San Diego State and again work with the International Training Center. I'm particularly pleased to be able to talk with you this morning about the challenges of global competitiveness and the importance of customer service in achieving excellence in global competitiveness. There will be two segments to my presentation today. In the first segment, we'll talk about excellence in global competition and how many organizations are applying the tools of total quality and performance management to bolster their efforts to compete. In the second module, I will focus on customer service and effectiveness, and we'll look at the relationship of profit to service, as well as touch on three key strategies many organizations are using to improve their competitive position and demonstrate their commitment to provide value to their customers. Much has been written and said about the new global economy. Today I would like to talk with you about these changes and what it means for our organizations and our relationships with our customers. First, as the world integrates economically, the component parts are becoming more numerous and smaller and more important. In other words, as the global economy gets larger, in organizations throughout the world, business units are becoming smaller. We have seen this fundamental restructuring of the world's economy during the last decade for several reasons. The increasing wealth of nation and workers. The wealth of the industrialized world's workers has caught up with the United States, and the next tier is coming up fast. Two, the globalization of economic activity. The worldwide reduction in trade barriers that began in 1950 has gradually created a consumer openness to foreign goods throughout the world. Third, the diversification of consumer taste. Variety and customization of goods and services have become key competitive principles. Fourth, the increasing value of human time. Most people have more money to spend, but we also have less time to spend it. Time has become a premium. 5, the commercialization of homemaking and personal care labor. Because of the scarcity of time, today's generations are buying goods and labor to do the chores that their parents would have done for themselves. 6, the increasing participation of consumers in production and service delivery. Computer-based technologies are allowing customers to participate in designing goods and services tailored to their specific needs and preferences. And finally, advances in technology. Digital technology is bringing a whole new level of adaptive ability and precision in production and products. Many organizations are exploiting this new technology in combination with flexible workforces. Such organizations are raising the bar on productivity because when employees master the computer's precision, they are able to increase the ante on both quality and productivity. The heart of this new global economy is productivity, but a new kind of productivity. Traditionally, productivity has been measured by comparing investments of labor and capital to the volume of an organization's outputs, usually expressed in terms of quantity or speed. However, in today's economy, volume is giving way to value, and knowledge is now as important as labor and actually more important than capital. Today, the strategic knowledge of an organization, as expressed by the capability of its workers and the collective competence of its processes and products, is essential to impacting the value of its outputs. In response to the challenges of the new economy, Organizations are adopting new strategies based on focusing more on customers, the marketplace, and the competition. Empowering people by pushing decision-making down with end-to-end accountability and clear line of sight to customers. Simplifying business processes, radically increasing the clock speed to reduce time to market to stay in front of changing requirements, and rewards based on performance. The new economy demands that organizations deliver what their customers want when the customers want it. This means that organizations have to not only run faster, but also smarter. Because they have had to become more adaptive and flexible, most organizations have addressed this challenge by adopting total quality management strategies. This means implementing 3 specific interdependent efforts: teamwork, which includes empowerment; quality improvement, which is continuous improvement and customer satisfaction; and benchmarking. Increasingly, teams and groups have become essential elements for any organization's operation. These are great rewards to be realized by working in groups and finding new and better ways of doing things. For one thing, when groups work well together, they provide a level of satisfaction that energizes and inspires their whole organization. But while experience teaches us that working collaboratively offers exciting possibilities, capturing such excitement is hard work. Managers have to learn how to teach their team to work together by helping them to understand their objectives, to clarify their team's purpose, and to learn the skills they need to collaborate in meeting their objectives. The goal is to empower employees to assume power for their actions. Although this has implications to personal behavior, the goal is to empower workers to both redesign and manage their own work. Time and time again, we have learned that the people closest to the work are those that have the information needed to improve how it is done. We used to think that the manager's job was to know all the answers, but today the manager ought to know the questions. Today's managers need to become facilitators, skilled in eliciting the answers from others, even from people who don't know that they know. This begins with managers and employees agreeing on the conditions and the processes of empowerment, including the establishment of the boundaries of authority, which must be clearly stated, and are open to negotiation based upon performance. This is sometimes called bounded freedom. Empowerment also means training teams to appraise their resources, including the skills of the members of the team, against the tasks to be performed, and to solicit appropriate resources, and based on their performance, to acquire control of those resources. This is called building the capacity to act. First, teamwork is important. But what do empowered teams do that is different? Mostly they pursue quality improvement and customer satisfaction. Second, because organizations must move more quickly in the new global economy, they have lost the luxury of being able to correct their mistakes after the fact. So we have to learn to do things right the first time. For one thing, new technology is changing so rapidly, it is placing heavy strains on our organization's ability to keep up. That is why during the past decade, successful organizations have countered those pressures by learning to meet customer requirements right the first time. Third, this is also why total quality management has surged to the world's manufacturing and service industries. Today, the continuous improvement of processes and products has become the basic management approach for many organizations. Leading companies throughout the world have learned that the power of total quality management is to improve the way they serve their customers, and this will ultimately improve their competitive results. The definition of quality is meeting the customer's requirements, which suggests that there is a customer who has a requirement, and that there is someone who can supply a solution. Once an organization accepts this definition, then it must also accept that if the supplier is to satisfy the customer's requirements, there must be a functional work process or a chain of process connections at work. This consists of an input, to a value-added process that produces an output. An organization's effort to satisfy their end-user customer requirements is made up of many of these distinct internal processes. However, when these processes are focused only internally, then the needs of the end-user customer will likely suffer. It is only when an external focus is used to evaluate the effectiveness of the work process that customer requirements can be properly determined, documented, and implemented. And that is why companies that aspire to world-class status in the new economy must also learn to master benchmarking. This is because benchmarking is the best approach for guiding any continuous improvement process by helping an organization determine the most important things to improve and the best approaches for improving them. What I mean by benchmarking is to measure your own products, services, and practices against the best in the field. A good definition of benchmarking is a continuous systematic process for evaluating the products, services, and work processes of organizations that are recognized as representing best practices for the purpose of organizational improvement. In his book, Head to Head, Lester Thoreau wrote, "A country that wants to win starts by closely studying the competition. The purpose is not emulation, but what the business world calls benchmarking. Find those in the world that are best at each aspect of economic performance, measure your performance against theirs, understand why they are better, set yourself to target of first equaling and then surpassing their performance." End quote. There are many ways to describe the benefits of benchmarking to an organization. Simply stated, there are 5 basic benefits any organization should expect. Meeting customer requirements. Only an external focus will assure that your customer requirements are determined, documented, and eventually implemented. Benchmarking is the process for facilitating what those needs are by searching out best industry practices. Ensuring that best practices are incorporated in your work processes. Benchmarking forces a continual appraisal of the external environment at the work process level, not just the organization's strategic direction, by searching out the best practices. Measuring true productivity. True productivity is the outcome of workers at all levels solving real problems. This can only happen when there is a clear knowledge of what the organization does well and an accurate insight to how other organizations do comparable things. Benchmarking is the process for obtaining this basic data. Establishing fact-based goals. The constant external focus and testing of ideas, methods, and practices, and incorporating them into the plans and programs of the organization is a powerful approach to ensuring the organization's long-term competitiveness. Becoming competitive. The very process of an external search for strategic data and plan commitment is what ultimately results in an organization becoming competitive. Often organizations do not change until the pain of competition is felt severely. Too often, by the time the pain is felt, either life-threatening surgery has to be performed or the lead time to change doesn't permit catching up to the competition. However, with benchmarking, you can recognize the pain before it occurs. All these efforts, empowerment, quality improvement, and benchmarking, represent change. But these changes are only the beginning of the change our organizations must make in the new global economy. As we move through this last decade of the 20th century and a new millennium looms before us, public and private organizations throughout the globe are experiencing extensive, far-reaching changes well beyond anything we have seen before. Today's organizations are discovering that their technology investments have quietly given birth to operating processes that are cross-functional, and that their information and planning processes reach across their whole enterprise. In turn, this free flow of information and the introduction of total quality processes and employee empowerment has created new working relationships, exposing many redundant and superfluous activities. It is these discoveries that are providing the incentive for these organizations to invent new ways of operating by re-engineering their structures, establishing new ways to measure their outcomes, reevaluating their investments in human resources, often by downsizing and retraining, and inventing new ways to operate. This is more than change. These are fundamental transformations of how an organization operates. Of course, organizations are always changing. To survive, companies are constantly adjusting to the marketplace, public policy, and society. When something goes wrong with a product, a competitor does the unexpected, or a new environmental regulation is enacted, the organization becomes imbalanced. Management acts to solve the problem, and the system is brought back into balance. Changes may have been made in policy, strategy, or operating principles, but basically management simply restores the organization to the state it was in prior to the problem. That is what the usual purpose of management's role, adapting to external and internal disruptions quickly and effectively by maintaining stability and confidence in the organization. Unlike effecting simple change, transforming an organization is much more fundamental. There is a simple way of looking at the change management process. The management of change involves understanding the present state, A, creating an image of the desired state, B, and developing a strategy for moving from A to B. After the initial diagnosis is completed, management's most challenging creative task is to state what will be done differently in the future. Here is where members of the senior management team have an opportunity to discuss their vision of the enterprise's mission. This vision may range from a set of principles or values to detailed papers outlining specific outputs, operating styles, and organizational structures. At a minimum, it should address the question of values as well as performance. It is the actual implementation of these strategies that is the transition state, C. The current state just doesn't become the desired state overnight, and many companies have failed to recognize this step in their change plans, and that is why they have failed. What kind of change am I talking about? Christopher Bogan and Michael English developed a model to show the relationship of the four kinds of change organizations are pursuing today: continuous improvement, managed reform, organization restructuring, and business process re-engineering. Their model shows how these four approaches differ in the degree of change they represent. On the vertical axis, the model shows tactical or strategic change. Tactical changes are small-sized improvements, such as process changes that reduce product rejections. Strategic changes are much larger improvements, like accelerating time to market by 50%. The horizontal axis depicts the speed and longevity of that change, immediate or extended. Immediate change is as fast as 1 to 3 months, while extended change takes months, even years to occur. A business process re-engineering project may require 2 or 3 years to complete, for example. It is these two dimensions of assessing change that reveals the four possibilities for performance improvement. Immediate tactical change is called continuous improvement. For example, in the city of Madison, Wisconsin, a team of workers and managers set out to cut vehicle turnaround time from 9 days to 3 days and to save $7.15 for every dollar invested in improvements, which was an annual net savings of $700,000. Immediate strategic change is known as organizational restructuring. This means functional transfers, structural reorganizations, downsizing, and realignments. Organizations throughout the world have captured short-term productivity gains and expense savings during the past 10 years by imposing restructuring and downsizing. Extended tactical change is what is called managed reform. This consists of a multitude of reactive and proactive management actions to reduce or eliminate errors or negative trends, or to ensure that operating processes meet management objectives. At Selectron Corporation, for example, customers submit a weekly report card on 4 key factors, rating them as A, 100, B, 90, C, 80, D, 70. Each Thursday morning, the top management team, including the division managers, meet to see if the scores were an average of 95%, or better. When the target was met week after week, it was hard to see much chance for improvement. So they simply lowered the weighting of the letter grades, eliminating any score for C and making D minus 100. While the scores remained 95, the average project rejection rate dropped by half. Extended strategic is business process reengineering. This is an extensive set of activities for evaluating processes and procedures, organizational structures, and the application of technologies in order to reinvent the way the organization conducts its business. At Xerox, we've embarked upon a strategy to achieve world-class breakthrough productivity by the effective utilization of people, process simplification, and the elimination of waste. Strategic and annual plans are developed against specific productivity goals. Our two basic enablers for productivity are business process improvement and people empowerment. Why such emphasis on process and business simplification in the new economy? The answer is simple. The unpredictability of global economic events requires new mechanisms for stability. It is increasingly clear that the management challenge for the new economic age is one of involving all organization members in transforming and improving the systems and processes in which they work. Productivity is the result of efficiencies within an organization, but efficiencies are almost always the result of effective business processes that have been improved by their simplification. To make a process more simple or effective means to reduce its complexity. Processes tend to become complex and less effective by the process owner having added process steps to deal with some external error, or extra process steps that were adopted to correct errors in the process itself. Experience shows that by eliminating these internal and external errors, an organization can produce extensive gains in productivity that far exceed any gains in improving the efficiency of an error-ridden process. For example, automating an assembly process that is chock full of errors will create a crisis for everyone involved, like implementing just-in-time manufacturing techniques without first eliminating or reducing the current quality problems. To achieve world-class productivity, an organization must rely on the effective utilization of its people, the simplification of its processes, and the elimination of waste. By empowering its employees to focus on work process improvements by doing things differently or eliminating them entirely, an organization can begin its quest for productivity. This can be done by adding to today's cost-centered, volume-measured standards the value-added concepts of total quality and the customer's desire for timeliness, accuracy, and relevance. There are three enablers for reaching world-class productivity: recognition of the need for breakthrough improvements in business processes, empowerment throughout the organization, and technological excellence, because the re-engineering of business processes is enabled by empowered employees effectively using technology and new information systems. World-class productivity requires that measures be developed and implemented for all outputs of the organization's key business processes, and that these measures reflect multiple views of productivity: customer, internal stakeholders, and investors. These measures have to be further refined to in-process measures to allow inspection and correction. Successful implementation requires measurements that make it possible to know when world-class productivity will be achieved. There are 4 facts that an organization that wishes world-class productivity must accept. 1, the customer and the market are the center of importance, and business results are an outcome that flows from this center. 2, a two-way line of sight must exist between the organization and its customers and markets. 3, management commitment and leadership are the drivers of all activities, but they are connected to the organization's customers by its employees. 4, if the processes and tools employees use are to become energized as productivity enablers, there must be constant dialogue between management and employees and regular feedback from employees. An organization's efforts to manage its performance begins with a clear vision of where it is headed. A vision that is directional statement that provides a clear picture of the desired state that the organization wants to create. And it presents that future in vivid color, depicting both its achievability and challenge. A vision is senior management's optimism, its emotion and excitement for what can be. But the important question is, how will the organization know when it has reached the desired state? Although the time horizon depends largely upon the scope of the vision, typically achieving a vision requires 3 to 5 years for small organizations and operating units and 5 to 10 years for large organizations. To assess how effectively an organization's vision provides total value for its customers, Robert Kaplan and David Norton conceived a system called a balanced worksheet. Their approach combines both financial and operational measures into an integrated system of performance indicators that is comprised of 4 elements: the financial perspective, the customer perspective, the internal perspective, and the organizational or learning and innovation perspective. The financial perspective: if we succeed, how will we look to our shareholders? This perspective has 3 dimensions: profitability, growth, and shareholder value. The customer view asks, to achieve our vision, how must we look to our customers? This perspective has 4 dimensions: time, quality, performance, and cost of ownership. The internal operating perspective asks, to delight our customers, what management processes must we excel at? This perspective includes 3 dimensions: cycle time, quality, and productivity. The organizational or innovation and learning perspective asks, to achieve our vision, how must the organization continuously learn, improve, and create value? This perspective focuses on innovation, continuous learning, and intellectual assets. This perspective recognizes that many organizations today are building learning organizations for competitive advantage. Most managers see work process in simple, obvious terms. They believe, therefore, in simple, obvious solutions to problems. This usually leads to the frenzied search for simple fixes. It is this find and fix process of multiple, simultaneous, interdependent cause-effect-cause relationship that accounts for a great deal of why managers are so drawn to simple solutions. For example, if an organization has a problem with a product development time, the response is usually to hire more engineers. Or if the problem is low profits, the reaction is to cut costs. And the response to falling market share is usually to cut prices. What should be at question is whether the root causes of the problems are identified and whether the fix is the correct solution. The object of process simplification is to guarantee the customer's requirements and to do so correctly, without error, the first time through. Since most of us haven't managed this way before, most of us, our experience has been find and fix. We are accustomed to using diagnostics and cures based on what has worked in the past. Too often we have not been taught to see our job as finding new cures, much less permanent cures, pursuing errorless work processes. But that is what the new economy is all about. Global competition demands management decisions based on facts. Intuition and prior experience in and of themselves are no longer enough. The objective of the management by facts style is to achieve the organization's business results through continuous work process improvement based on the most quantifiable data available. A manager who wants to adopt the personal practices that will lead to management by fact must first focus on those few vital behaviors that will help he or she manage by the facts. Managers must, 1, use the tools and processes of quality. These are statistical tools and quality processes, work processes, solving problems, and improving product service and product process quality. 2, find the root causes for problems. This commitment to finding the root causes of cause and effect issues in work process not only uncovers opportunities for improvement, but strongly demonstrates what total quality is all about. A famous saying is relevant here. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of the horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the battle was lost. For want of the battle, the war was lost. 3, set measurements for